Okay, starting off with biblical standards for defending truth. Obviously, this is going to be a fundamental contention for this approach. Though fundamental to classical apologetics and evidentialism are the respective approaches to epistemology, or the theory of knowledge. How do we know things? Putting the matter rather broadly, classical apologetics is indebted largely to the rationalistic traditions in Western philosophy, and we kind of hammered that pretty clear as being truthful there. While evidentialism is indebted to the empiricist tradition. So those are kind of the one follows after the other, but in kind of today's modern worldview, those two almost have very good similar approaches, I would probably say. Although probably evidentialism still probably weighs out because it allows people to make more personalized interpretations of the facts.
And also with classical apologetics, they use evidentialism in their second step.
Right.
So, so they kind of use both. And so, evidentialism is probably an important part of both of those particular approaches.
Yeah, it's just how well do you do with the premises and conclusion, all the fun words in there that are brought about there. Well, however, nearly all apologists of both approaches today would favor some epistemology that combined elements of rationalism and empiricism and avoid the extremes of both theories.
Right. So what they want to say is, broadly speaking, classical apologetics is kind of a rationalistic approach because their first step are these proofs, these rationalistic proofs for the existence of God. And broadly speaking, evidentialism is kind of indebted to empiricism because they're looking at sensory experience, our evidence, right, with regard to the resurrection and so forth. But what they want to say here is that, it's just broadly speaking. They don't want to say that's all that either of the sides use, right? Mm-hmm. Both of them use kind of both kinds of approaches here. And, during the Enlightenment time, this was extremely controversial and debated issue. Is the basis of knowledge reason, rationalism, or is the basics of knowledge sensory experience, right? And so Descartes on one side and John Locke's on the other, and so forth. And so, and then they're off and running. Kant tries to, come up with something combining both of them, something like that. Anyway, Reform apologetics, differently than both classical and the evidentialists, they believe a different approach to epistemology is in order. So not necessarily these rationalistic proofs, nor necessarily evidentialist types of, probability arguments with regard to the resurrection and so forth. Reformed apologetics, our authors tell us, typically reject not only rationalism and empiricism, but also any epistemology that seeks to combine the two theories, as all these epistemologies in their different ways treat human knowledge, notice, as self-sufficient or autonomous. And so that's the problem. That's the main problem that Reform apologists have, right? These approaches treat human knowledge as self-sufficient, that we are sufficient in and of ourselves, and we are, self-autonomous, right? Self-locking.
Right. And so, if you were here for our book with John Frame, this is something that he said, out of any point of the presuppositional viewpoint, this is his key one. And so this is going to be a lot of within argumentation, so the exercise of presuppositionalism or Reformed apologetics here, you're going to find a claim here on exactly where we get our starting point from. And so that's what presuppositions tends to do, is to take a step back and say, okay, from what position are we arguing, and do we have good basis to start there?
Right. And so, for the presuppositionalist, rationalism, empiricism, and other epistemologies attempt to explain how human beings can gain knowledge without reference to God and man's relationship to God. And according to, Van Til, for instance, there are ultimately only two kinds of epistemologies. those that make all human knowledge dependent on God, and those that don't make all human knowledge dependent on God. So there's no rationalism, empiricism, combination, or whatever. It's either you're dependent on God for your your knowledge, right, epistemology, or you're not. And those are the two sides. Those are the two kinds of epistemology that Van Til wants to argue for.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we're going to start with epistemology, and then proofs can come later, but we want to talk about knowledge base and where's the starting point there.